So, it's fascinating to me just how much goes on in a human being. So, kind of, there's this sort of obvious domain. You know, when I was speaking about how we can see each other on the Zoom screen, you know, we're kind of used to seeing faces and people wearing clothes and backgrounds and kind of what's out there in everyday life. But somehow what's in here in everyday life doesn't usually get the same kind of attention. It's not something maybe that we would readily share, you know, kind of. And we can know this by whenever you ask someone the question, "How are you?" You know, generally you will not get the response. Well, the landscape of my body and mind today is of, you know, kind of a sense of calm in an ancient woodland, or peace mixed with layers of gentle waves of distraction. You know, probably for good reason. You know, there are things to do, take a long time. But it would also be quite rich, wouldn't it, if we could actually, you know, communicate with each other. Maybe not all the time, but sometimes. What's, you know, how are you? Good. No, really, how are you? You know, get an answer that's more than just good or okay. Or, so there's a richness. If we are willing to look and pause and be interested in this being human. First few lines of Rumi's guest house poem. This being human is a guest house. So if we can get interested in this being human, there's actually a huge kind of wealth of experience there. Now, that's not to say that it's necessarily always all lovely. It isn't. But it is rich. And there seems to be a correlation between health, as in well-being, and our capacity to connect with this richness. I don't know if anybody's come across the phrase emo diversity, which sounds a bit like a dance troupe, doesn't it? But it's the description for the capacity to experience lots of different emotions, both at the same time. So kind of like, you know, the kaleidoscope of emotion, lots of different emotions at the same time, and also the capacity for experiencing simply lots of different emotions in life, in kind of the subtleties. And actually, people who experience well-being are not the ones who report sort of, you know, kind of just basic happy or necessarily positive emotions. The ones who actually express a kind of greater sense of well-being are the ones who are able to connect with all sorts of different emotions, including the ones that we tend to label as being negative. So kind of an overall health actually is dependent on our being able to connect with sadness, anger, as much as, you know, contentment, you know, excitement, anxiety, maybe. You know, all of that is part of this being human. You know, I remember when I first started kind of looking at this stuff, which was really when I was kind of forced to start looking at it. I remember the kind of very first session I ever had with a psychotherapist, where you know, I realized that, you know, this was even in the midst of kind of pretty severe and prolonged depression. I was able to connect with a sense of, wow, there's so much going on here that I didn't realize. And, you know, kind of experienced a passion to want to know what that was, and to kind of learn to live, open to these sort of deeper dimensions that are right here. I'm not talking about here anything sort of beyond the earth. I'm talking about what's right here beneath our noses, but which we tend not to pay attention to. At the time, the way I tried to sort of connect with that was by reading, hundreds of books, which didn't really get me very much closer to understanding. Well, it gave me a sort of theoretical template. It's a bit like having a menu for it, but not actually getting to taste the meal. But it was meditation practice that actually, kind of it started to be served up and tasted. And that was because meditation practice helped me to stop and actually see it. I was persuaded to take the time to look, to really look inside, and not to just interpret and analyze it through my cognitive mind, but to actually stop and feel and watch what was happening. And so, this is the first real part of mindfulness training. At least once we've agreed to stop. That's the first part, I guess. Temporarily, of course, we have to stop forever. But once we've stopped and are willing to put our attention to not just what we see or hear or think, but actually the whole range of the landscape, then we kind of begin to get familiar, perhaps, with the processes that affect who we are in any given moment, and those tend to come in the in the domains of thinking, of body sensations, of emotions, which are also body sensations, and impulses, which are also body sensations. So you can see why the body is quite important. So actually, 3 of these domains are experienced physically, and the other one is mental experience. And we begin to see as we look how these are entangled. All of these are entangled together. How body sensations lead to thoughts, thoughts lead to emotions, emotions lead to more body sensations. Of course, we've got input coming in as well from the outside world, and we're doing stuff. And of course, what we put out into the outside world then has an effect and more input. So, there's lots going on, and it's so easily tangled up into what John Teasdale calls the blob of experience. You're just kind of like indistinguishable. Like, how do you tell what's what? Was that a thought or an emotion? Was that an impulse, or was it a body sensation? Or and somehow by sort of training ourselves to notice the interrelationship of these, and also what they actually are as an experience, not just as an idea, it seems that gives us more freedom it gives us more understanding, which then gives the possibility of more freedom. And there's something else going on here too, if I may say. It's not just the fact that we get to know ourselves better, but the knowing itself is very important. So we've got, what's going on in the landscape. But you might have noticed when I was guiding the meditation, it's like I invited you to notice that we're witnessing what's going on in the landscape. So there was, for me anyway, a growing realization that the me that was kind of thoughts, emotions, body sensations, and impulses, which had been totally tangled up and just kind of an amorphous mess which went around living my life for me. But there was actually the possibility of discovering sort of a me, if you like, who could see it and step back from it, and therefore not be caught up in it. So the very act of noticing which seems so simple. It's like mindfulness training, just noticing. Is that it? How's that going to make a difference? Yeah, I kind of know what's going on, but actually, do you really know what's going on? Do we really know that we know what's going on? As John Kabat-Zinn likes to say, kind of our species is called Homo sapiens sapiens, beings that know that they know. But do we? Do we actually kind of identify? Do we connect with this knowing quality, which actually is there when we're not caught up in the autopilot of just doing, or automatically reacting. So if we can create a pause, stop, look, and then realize that there's a looker, or maybe more accurately, a looking, but however you want to describe it, that there's some part of our being that can see what's going on and therefore is not fused with it. If thoughts, emotions, body sensations are the objects of consciousness, then they're not the subject, and therefore this feeling of anxiety in my tummy is not the whole of who I am, which is quite helpful. So something that's quite simple, not easy to do, but quite simple, actually, in my experience, is a key that can really unlock a whole freedom in helping us to disidentify from what disturbs us, because it can be seen rather than just be disturbing, or indeed if it's something wonderful, then it can be enjoyed and seen and experienced without being spoiled by judging or grasping or projecting ahead to when it won't be there anymore. For example, and there are just a few other ways we can sometimes kind of ruin pleasant experiences. So that's the landscape of body and mind. So I'm aware I've done a fair amount of talking about it, which I'm going to stop doing and move into guiding a meditation practice. I hope will maybe kind of help us to connect with it at a really experiential level.